Let's now look at illustration number 4. Does the lack of access to foreign currency or the need to obtain an approval for payment from a regulatory authority, will it still be considered as a contractual obligation? Now, for example, let me actually try to expand this example. Let us say we actually borrowed money. We borrowed $1 lakh from a foreign bank. I am an Indian company. I have borrowed $1 lakh from a foreign bank. Now, for whatever situation, let us say I do not have access to purchase dollars from the market, because remember, to repay the loan, I will actually have to purchase US dollars by selling INR. Since I'm an Indian company, I would typically have INR with me. I will sell INR and buy dollars, and I will actually take these dollars and repay the loan that I have. All right. For whatever reason, let us say I do not have access to foreign currency. All right. Let's say I'm prohibited, or I need to take an approval from a regulatory authority before I'm actually able to purchase $1 lakh from the market. All right. Before I'm able to purchase $1 lakh from the market, I am actually required to obtain a regulatory approval, or let us say I do not have access. Does that mean that I actually do not have a contractual obligation to pay money? Does that actually mean I do not have a contractual obligation to pay money? The answer is no. All right. I actually have a contractual obligation to pay $1 lakh. To meet that contractual obligation, agreed that we need access to foreign currency, or we need a regulatory authority approval. But just because I need an approval does not mean that I don't have the obligation at all. All right. We have an obligation, and but to meet that obligation, we are required to obviously obtain the resources. All right. So we have an obligation. So this $1 lakh that I actually borrowed will still be regarded as a financial liability only. All right. Just because I do not have the access to resources does not mean that it will not be a financial liability. Same is the case with also, let's say, a debenture that I've issued in the Indian markets. All right. Let's say I've issued debentures worth 10 lakhs. Let us say I do not have cash to pay the 10 lakhs back. All right. I've reached the maturity date. Ideally, I'm supposed to return the 10 lakhs, but let's say I do not have cash. Just because I do not have cash with me, does that mean I do not have a contractual obligation? The answer is no. I have a contractual obligation, but I've defaulted on the contractual obligation because I do not have sufficient cash. All right. The contractual obligation continues to exist, but my lack of resources is basically regarded as a default on the obligation. All right. We cannot say that the contractual obligation itself does not exist. If I don't have the resources, the obligation still exists. It basically means that I've defaulted on the obligation. All right. So just because I do not have access to foreign currency, or I need regulatory authority approval, or let us say I do not have sufficient cash, all of these, that does not mean that I do not have an obligation itself. The obligation exists and I've actually defaulted on it. All right. So that is illustration number 4.